if this mic is on. What's up, Oakland? Would y'all put your hands together one more time for them? Honored to be here with you all. Really honored to be here. I know for some of you it's kind of weird because you know me as a profile picture on Facebook. You know me as, some of you don't know me as Shaun King, you know me as @Shaun King. And so I have two girls, two of my daughters are in high school, and even their friends call me @Shaun King, like there's an @ in front of my name. So, you know, I'm speaking tomorrow at True Vine Church, and I had to fly in from Alaska, and I had the thought, okay, I'm gonna be in Oakland for a few hours. Why don't a few of us just get together and talk a little bit? And so I said, like, hey, I want to talk to y'all on Saturday night. I'm gonna be in Oakland, coming from Alaska, and so many of you all said, here, I'm trying to help find a place, and an amazing brother helped find a place. Josh is here. Josh was a student athlete here at the school, and honored that you're here, man. Will you come up just for a few minutes and Josh? He's the president of Fam First, the amazing foundation that you and Marcus and others run, and your mother, your wonderful mother, works here at the school. And so when you reached out, I got an email and said, hey, I'm Josh, and I play in the NFL. I was like, is there really somebody named Josh from the NFL that sent me an email right now? And so I was like, let me Google to make sure. And then I said, sure enough, there's a brother named Josh who went to Oakland Tech, and we connected, man. So thank you for making this happen. Yeah. Fam First does, but can you speak a little bit about it, man?
For us, pretty much our perspective is a little different, and because we, I think the young lady said, like, get dirty. Like, we grew up dirty, you know. Like, we've been in the trenches, so we never left them. Like, and then we get our perspective from playing in the NFL. We see another side of life, and they show us another world, and we see what we're lacking here in Oakland. So it started with football. We didn't even really see ourselves as the role model types. We just was, you know, kids from Oakland trying to do what we loved. And then from there, we saw the impact that we had on the community with the kids. And so it was kind of like we had to take that role on. From taking on that role, now it's about, Fam First is basically here to pretty much bring resources to Oakland, to kids. Like, we wanna strap our kids with a tool belt that's gonna make them give them a chance in life. We feel like you guys, I'm not an activist, so I'm here to learn. Could you guys take on another perspective? Like, our perspective is to see the change that's happening in our community. That's how we identify the problems, because everything that happens at the top trickles down to the hood. And we see it with our own eyes to change. So our job is to try to combat the change. And like I said, strap our kids with the belt to take them away from the BS. We want them to be able to be doing what they love at a young age, partaking in things that they don't gotta look over their shoulder for, don't have to go to jail for, and see what life is like. We don't know as a community what life would be like if we was all doing something positive. So that's our thing, is to try to create as much resources as necessary for our real community that we grew up with in these trenches to get our kids focused and not distracted no more. There's too many distractions out here, and that's pretty much our angle. Building with Shaun, I think, is an opportunity to enlighten us on a lot of things with the laws and things of that nature. That's why I'm trying to, gain my perspective on this. And I'm just excited, and I'm happy that he was able to put this together, and all you guys coming out. And Fam First Family Foundation will be in the community. Y'all see us, and everybody that's doing positive for Oakland, keep doing it. Appreciate you.
Wow. It's great. I'm gonna teach. I don't think I need to. I hope you leave today inspired, but I'm really gonna do more teaching than than preaching or motivating, okay? I want to give you a perspective on something. Before we get started, there was a powerful moment before most of you got here. I was in the lobby. Most of the people on this front row are families who lost loved ones to police brutality here in the Bay. And several of us were just talking. And it was something really profound that just disturbed me in my soul. Josh's mother was right there with us, and she opened the doors for us and told us her family members that she lost to police brutality here in the Bay. So I just want to know how many of you have lost a family member or friend to police brutality in the Bay or somewhere else around the country. You know, some of you, like, see, it's not, you put your hands down, you know, it's not a current affairs issue, right? I know we use hashtags, but like for those folk with their hands up, they're, you know, those are their babies, that's their husbands, that's their brothers, it's their mothers, their sisters. And we have to get to a point where we treat our issues, like for a lot of people, those are news stories. But when it's personal like that, we're dealing with a human rights crisis. And we have to get to the point where we understand the human cost and toll that the brutality that we experience in our country causes. And so today, I'm going to teach a lesson that I've been teaching all over the country. And I know it probably surprises you to come to a presentation from a guy who's a leader in the Black Lives Matter movement and see a big hairy white man on the screen, right? This is Oakland, and since this is our gathering, I'm gonna tell you a little secret about why I start with him. But a lot of times I speak to predominantly white audiences, and one of the devices is actually a device that I learned to study in Malcolm X. Part of why I choose to start out with this man was actually a brilliant man named Leopold von Ranke, and I'm going to tell you about him, how I came to know what he did, how it affected how I see the world. As I start with his slide first, because for a lot of the white audiences I speak to, when they see that the primary point that I'm making came from a white man, they believe it just a little bit more. They just believe it a little more. And so, I wouldn't say that when I speak at the university, but it's a device, you know. Oh, also Josh brought me a Beast Mode shirt, Oakland Beast Mode shirt. I got my Oakland Beast Mode shirt on. When I speak, I like to wear like power shirt, you know, just clothes can give you power, you know. So, I was in grad school in the spring of 2015, and I'll come down with y'all for a second if you don't mind. Come down on the floor. Can you light me up down there when I mess you up? Yeah, that's good. I was in grad school in the spring of 2015, and I enrolled in class, and I was in a Master's of History program, and I enrolled in class, and I immediately realized I was in like the worst class that was available. And if you've ever been in college, just a few weeks ago, there was a period when you're in college, there's a period called the add drop period. And so I struggled to find the date. And I went, and if you've ever done this before, I went and I saw what classes were available. And I really waited too late, and the only thing that was left was like advanced badminton and you know, swimming 5. I mean, there was nothing relevant to professors in college, but there's also like a semi-woke professor whose those classes fill up real quick. So all the semi-woke professors' classes were full, and I realized I'm stuck with this class. And as soon as I took the next class, they showed this man's face on screen, and so I was really bitter, and I heard this man say. And it took me a second to realize the man has done nothing to me. He died in the 1800s, you know. And from all accounts, he appears to have been a pretty good man. And I realized it was really me. And in the summer of 2014, this was the spring of 2015 when I took a class featuring him. In the summer of 2014, the previous summer, a lot of us became awakened to the crisis of police brutality in America. Many of us knew it existed, but we had not lived the life of an activist. We'd seen it from afar. Nathalio and I went to Morehouse together in Atlanta, and when we were students at Morehouse, we protested when Amadou Diallo was killed. We protested when Shaun was killed in 1999 and 2000. Like, we knew about that. We've been activists. Like, most of you only know me for like the past 2 years, but like I owned my own bullhorn when I was in college. Like I've been doing this, and as people start to say, like, where do you come from? Like I've been doing this, and still though, in the summer of 2014, I was working at an environmental charity in LA actually, called Global Green, and my family and I had moved out to California from Atlanta, and I got an email, and this will show you how much things have changed. I got an email. The job was a beautiful job. I was director of communications for this charity, managing social media, email, marketing, outreach, and our offices were on the beach in Santa Monica, just like a cushy corporate job. And I got an email from a buddy of mine from college, actually. And there's something weird that happens. The people you go to college with, even if you never see them again, they always know you for who you were in college. So even though I was doing something completely different, all of my guys from Morehouse still knew me as like Shaun the activist. And the guy wrote me, and he said, Shaun, there's something really disturbing on YouTube. And it had not gone viral. We did not know about this yet. And he said, man, this is July 18th, 2014. He said, man, there's a video. And he said, on the video, there's a man, looked like he's in his 40s or 50s, and the police are clearly harassing him. And he's asking the police patiently to leave him alone. And the police just continue to tell him. He tells the police, I haven't done anything. And he said, Shaun, an officer grabs him by the neck, slams him on the ground, and just begins choking him. And he said, you could hear the guy over and over and over again say, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. He said, Shaun, he must have said it a dozen times. He said, Shaun, man, he said, it's on YouTube. And he said, man, the guy died. And there's just a dead man on the sidewalk. And I had the thought, because I wasn't at home, I had the thought, like, I don't even know if I want to click on this in my office. I didn't even know if I wanted to see it. I didn't know if it was really as he described it. I clicked on the link, and there was Eric Garner. He had been choked to death by the NYPD. Daniel Pantaleo, who's still being paid by the NYPD at this moment. Not working, just being paid. He even gets his pay raise every year. Every year. I saw the video, and the next day, I learned that Eric had a big family. I have 5 kids of my own, and I took it like deeply. It was so personal to me. It was one of those cases, and each of you probably have a moment in your life, and it's hard to explain, where one case ripped your heart out. And when I saw it, I just saw a man. I was like, God, what in the world would my family do if an officer who was irritated with me threw me on the ground and choked me to death? Like, my family's not prepared for that. And I felt a kinship with him, and I came to know his daughter, Erica, who's my friend, his wife, and his mother, and others, and I work with them in New York now. But I couldn't shake it. And I taught myself how to edit videos, and how to chop them up and zoom in, and a few days later I learned that chokeholds had been banned in New York for 10 years. So I taught myself, how to do screenshots, just basic stuff that I wasn't doing at that point. And I had the thought, and it made so much sense. I feel ridiculous saying it now, but it made a lot of sense in my mind. I had the thought, damn it, I'm gonna share this video. I'm gonna share the video, I'm gonna share the log, and they're gonna arrest this man. It's illegal. It was a banned move, it was illegal. Eric was unarmed, non-violent, and I had the thought, I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share it with everybody I know. I wasn't nearly as known as I am now, but I had a decent following, and within about 4 or 5 days, the whole country was talking about that case. And I was like, all right, we're gonna get some momentum. Like, people were protesting, because everybody who saw it, this tells you how bad it is. They did an interview with George W. Bush. He was not president at the time, but they did an interview with him and asked him what he thought about it. And President George W. Bush said it was a grave injustice. And he expected this, just a week or two after it happened, he expected somebody was going to be held accountable. George W. Bush. And then I was started doing a terrible job at Global Green. I just became focused on this case, obsessed with it. And the people at Global Green were so sweet not to fire me. I would love them for the rest of my life, because for about 2 months, I stopped doing my job there, but the money kept hitting my account, direct deposit, and they knew I was not doing my job. And so I got a text message from a friend of mine. This is about 3 weeks after Eric was killed. I got a text message from a friend of mine, and he said, Shaun, he said, I'm gonna post this link. It's a live stream video. He said, Shaun, and he lived in St. Louis, and this is how he described it to me. He said, man, in St. Louis, there's a neighborhood called Ferguson. And he said, right now, the police have shot a kid, and he's on the street, and Shaun, you can literally see blood flowing down the street. And he said, people are losing it. I clicked on the link. It was just as he described. I saw a kid laying in the middle of the street, blood flowing down, and the anger by the moment. He'd already been out there on the hot concrete on August day on Canfield Drive. He'd already been out there for hours. Nobody was allowed to touch him. Nobody was allowed to give him any comfort or any real cover. And the anger was going up. And I had the thought, I'm just being real with you, I had the thought, this is where I was, oh my God, they're killing us out here every 2 or 3 weeks. That's what I thought. And then, literally the next day, I got another email from some people in Ohio. And it said, Shaun, there's a brother who was in a Walmart, in the pet food section, on the phone. His girlfriend just had a baby, on the phone with his girlfriend, in the pet food section, and some idiot called 911 and said that John Crawford had loaded a gun and was pointing it at people, which never happened. Nothing like that. Police came in and shot John right on the spot. He never even knew what was going on. I mean, I studied every camera in there. And then I had the thought, oh my God, they're not killing us every 2 to 3 weeks. They're killing us every 2 or 3 days. And then a few days later, I realized, no, it's not every 2 or 3 days. It's every 4 or 5 hours. A few months later, when the nation is gripped with protests, like the boiling point of this country was hit. The whole world knew the name Mike Brown. The whole world. Everywhere I went around the world, people were talking about Ferguson. People were talking about police brutality. But our goal was not for people to talk about it. Like, we all stopped what we were doing because we thought we were going to get some justice. And so for months, for July and August, September, October, we were fighting. No decisions had been made with any of those cases for justice. And then in November, I learned what I thought at the time was probably the worst thing I could ever hear. That police in Cleveland, Ohio, had shot and killed a baby boy, a 12-year-old boy, sweetest boy, who was at the park with his sister playing on a day off, a block away from his mother's house, Tamir Rice. And I had the thought, like, okay, somebody's going to be held accountable for this. And in a few weeks, we learned, after Tamir Rice was killed, that there would be no justice for Mike Brown. There would be no justice for Eric Garner. There would be no justice for John Crawford. And eventually we learned there would be no justice for Tamir Rice. In fact, of the 1,100 people who were killed by police that year, not a single officer was held accountable. 0.0%. Like, for those of you who do statistics, that's a ridiculous, like, even when you think about medical malpractice or anything, like, when something is 0.0%, that's a conspiracy. 0.0% reliable. Like, of course, if I'm being like really, really conservative, it has to be 1.1%, 2.9%, 3.7%. Like, it has to be, it can't be 0.0%. That's unrealistic scientifically. And in the wake of that, I'm a deeply optimistic person. I was a pastor most of my adult life. I was a high school history and civics teacher. Y'all thought I just wrote about police brutality all my life. I worked in prisons and youth detention centers for almost 5 years in Atlanta full time, at 20 different prisons and youth detention centers. I met several of you, introduced yourself to me, and told me your story about being formerly incarcerated. And I was, for the first time in a very long time in my life, I went to a deep funk. I'm just gonna keep it all the way real with you. I had never really lost. Like, everything I ever put my heart and my mind out to do, it always happened. Every battle I'd ever fought, looking at Natalio, like, every election I ever ran as a student, I was student government. I wanted to be president of my dormitory freshman year, and I got elected. The next year I wanted to be student government president, and I got elected. And I had never fought over and over and over and over again for something, like with my whole heart and soul, and just lost. Again and again and again and again. And so a few weeks later, when we get all of this bad news over and over again, I enrolled for a class and saw this big hairy white man, and I hated that white man. I did. I was like, man, what do you have to tell me about the world? Because right now, I found myself angry, disappointed in myself. Like, what did I do wrong? How did I approach this? Is our strategy off? And what I learned in this class, what I learned from Leopold von Ranke, it has shaped the way I've seen injustice for the past 2 years. He is seen, if you Google his name, you see it here at the bottom, Leopold von Ranke. He is seen as the father of the study of history. Before Leopold von Ranke, you could not major in college, you could not have a history major. He created the academic discipline of history. People studied the past, of course, but you could not get a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD in history. He pioneered the field. He was really the first man who said, if we're going to talk about history, we have to have rules and guidelines on how we do it. And he said to do something. And so he built a timeline of human history that took him about 35 years to build. Mind you, you have to think about this. Mind you, there were no computers, there was no internet, there was no Google, no Wikipedia. But deeper than that, there was very little international travel. For the most part, most people in the world did not know the history of the country next to them. So in the 1850s, when he decided, I want to make a timeline of world history, he had to track the information down. And he decided to find every hero, every villain, every inventor, every creator, every warlord, every nation. And it took him it was his life's work. It took him 35 years. And the first thing that he did, and this picture always makes me laugh, the first thing he did was just find people and find out as much as he could about them. Now, right here is rerun from What's Happening. Now, the crowd's a little diverse, and so some of you laugh, but you really don't know who rerun is. You just laugh at the person next to you laugh. But you do need to Google. You need to go to YouTube when you get a chance. Here's what you need to search. You need to put rerun, What's Happening, but you gotta put this at the end, dance. Can anybody do that dance? You got anybody Cat's calling you out. Can you? Oh, come on out and break it down for us. It's a party. It's a party. What you doing? Break it down. No. All right. YouTube. You ain't gonna do it? Oh my God. I thought we had a vibe going, and I was gonna call on you. You're gonna do it. So of course, rerun was not on Leopold von Ranke's, list, but he put together this amazing collection of people. And what he found is what I want to talk about. What he found was, when he put together this amazing collection of people, what he found was that people were fundamentally misunderstanding how time works. Maybe the first man in the history of humanity who sought out to build a comprehensive timeline of the entire world. And when he did it, he started realizing that people were not really understanding how time unfolds. And what I want to teach is a core concept, almost is almost Matrix-esque, because there is a way that we think time unfolds, and it's not unfolding that way. Here's what he found. He found that when he studied any period of human history, if you see this as the early humans, and you see that as today, okay? If this is early humans and that's today, or if you said this is the 1900s or the 2000s, when he looked at any point in human history, technology was always getting better. Always. He wasn't studying the technology we have, he was looking at medicine. And he talked in his research about how, for most of human history, people were awake during surgery. And they were starting to finally pioneer how to allow people to be asleep during surgery. He started talking about the refrigeration of food. For most of human history, the food had to be fresh or had to go through a very deep period of preservation, an extended period of preservation. So he talked about refrigeration and transfer of food. For us, it would be the telephone. Like, there's some young people in the room. I'm old enough to remember when my phone had to be tied to the wall. You remember? And some of you, particularly some of you who brought your kids, they're like, Mom, your phone used to be tied to the wall. You remember you used to have a really tight, curly cord? And I'm 37, but I've been married to my wife. My wife and I have been together for 22 years. And I thank her for allowing me to be here and to do this. You know? When I used to call my wife, their phone would be tied to the wall. And I knew that whatever I said to my wife, to my girlfriend, or whatever I said to my girlfriend, my mother could hear it. And my mother was real lax with me, but her mother was not. So I also knew, not only did I know that her mother could hear her because her phone was tied to the wall, but there was this thing that mothers used to do. They would go back to their bedroom and pick up another phone. And they would pick up the phone and actually pick it up on the low and hear your whole steadily gets better, right? Now, I don't know how to, if this is the telephone, I don't know how to explain the Galaxy Note 7. I cannot. The Galaxy Note 7, it blows up the way this graphic works. Even on my way here, I took a train last week in New York, going from New York to Boston, and even on the train, they say, if you have a Galaxy Note 7, you need to bring it to us. We have a special bag for it. So even though technology steadily improves, every now and then you have a Galaxy Note 7 and it doesn't quite make sense. But think about cars, right? Think about transportation. Think about flight. The technology steadily improves, but what Von Ranke found was people were confusing the steady improvement of technology with the steady improvement of humanity. That what he found, and what's wild, this was 150 years ago, and psychologists say we still believe it to this day. What he found is that throughout all of history, human beings assumed they were getting better and better and better and better and better and better. Core theory of science, be it the theory of evolution or anything else, core theories basically say human beings get better. And for most of Von Ranke's life, he thought, hey, we're doing it a little better than them, and they're doing it a little better than them, and they're doing it a little better than them, right? But when he started really looking at it, and he laid out, this is the timeline of the history of London, when he laid out all of human history, what he found is that human beings don't look like this, they look like this. That human beings aren't steadily getting better. That's not true. Technology is steadily getting better. But when he looked at all of human history, what he found was that sometimes human beings are amazing. And he found, and it sounds weird today, because we don't know this world. He found periods of human history where people treated each other in some of the most dignified ways. Where there was very little war, very little famine, incredible collaboration between people groups all over the world. What he found was that, no, humanity is not this steady incline in quality. Sometimes human beings are great, and sometimes human beings suck. That if you look at any period of human history, that sometimes they are like, sometimes human beings are here, and that's just amazing. Sometimes it's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And sometimes you're in the dip. And it's part of what has confused us about where we are in the world. And it's something that I hear all the time. I wish I had a slide for it. Just 3 days ago, the legislature in Mississippi voted, this seems like fiction, voted to reinstate firing squads as a method of execution in the state of Mississippi. No joke. That's not like fake news, right? That's real. Voted like 78 to 21. And here I saw people say, okay, I want to break it down, because what people are doing is they're misunderstanding how time works. So right here, if this is the beginning of time, and here we are at this tip, people saw this and they saw Mississippi reinstate the firing squads, and guess what I saw people saying? I saw people saying, what is this? The 50s? What is this? The 1800s? What people were doing, they saw what happened here, and it didn't make sense to them. So I saw people say, like, what is this? Prehistoric times? Or I remember, here's an even better example. There was a month last summer where the KKK endorsed Donald Trump, openly, publicly. Several neo-Nazi groups endorsed Donald Trump, openly. I mean, literally professing their allegiance to him. Like, boldly, publicly, openly. And in that same month, right around 4th of July weekend, Alton Sterling and Philando Castile were both shot and killed by police in Louisiana and Minnesota. And when I met these families, I know Alton's family and Philando's family, who were still both fighting for justice. And when that happened, in that month, I did a quick study, and I found almost 25,000 people in that week who said when they saw the Klan endorse Donald Trump, here's what they kept saying. What is this, the 60s? What they're saying is actually deep. What they're saying is, I thought we were here, but why does it feel like we're here? Another one, on the day after Election Day, a lot of people around the country, the question that they were asking is, if we're here, how does he get elected? What they're saying is, I thought we were on a steady incline in the quality of humanity, but if we're steadily inclining, how do we explain Donald Trump? Because here's the thing, if this is true, that means Donald Trump is peak humanity. Like, that's not even a liberal joke. I don't even think conservatives don't believe Donald Trump is peak humanity. His own approval ratings are now 10 points less than the number of people who voted for him. Right? If this is true, we can't explain Donald Trump. And it's because this is not how time works. If this is how time works, how do we explain this? Some of you in the audience, it's your first time seeing it, but this is not an artist's rendering. It's an actual diagram from the transatlantic slave trade. Where they were trying to determine how many human beings they could fit onto the ship and safely transport with as little human waste, I don't mean excrement, but waste as in black bodies. How could they safely transport them to their final port of sale to distribute and sell them? Because here's the thing. We know this is true, and if this is early humans, and that's today, this right here, in the scheme of human history, this took place about right there. Like, this is new. We want to feel like this is old, but in the scheme of human history, the transatlantic slave trade, I did the time. Transatlantic slave trade is on the last third of this bar. And if humanity is steadily getting better, how do we explain that? How do we explain him? This is art. This is a photo. How do we explain the wounds on his back? How do we explain the mental process that created these wounds? If humanity is steadily getting better, how do we? If this is true, how do we explain these men? 6 million people. It's a deeply relevant conversation right now. This is an image from the Holocaust, where 6 million people, in the span of just a few years, were snatched from their homes and sent to camps. We live in an age already where, even here in California, where we're seeing raids. Donald Trump has committed publicly, repeatedly, over and over and over again, to forcefully deporting people. He said he would deport 14 million people in 2 years or less. Which I did the math, that's 450,000 people a month. You know what that looks like? It looks like the Holocaust. How do you deport 450,000 people a month? Now, that is why you now see Holocaust survivors speaking out against the immigration ban and against the ICE raids happening across the country, because they remembered how the early days of that felt. And it's deeply painful and reminiscent. If this is true, how is this pile of shoes true? This is at a museum in Auschwitz. Thousands and thousands of men and women and children were forced to take their shoes off as they went into the concentration camps. If this is true, how is this true? This is Rwandan genocide. Most of us in the room were alive when this happened. Where about 1 million people were hacked to death in about 45 days. If humanity is steadily getting better, how do we explain what he's experiencing right now? This is at a Rwandan genocide museum. And my friends that are from Rwanda, to this very day, people find skulls and bones throughout the country that they now try to catalog and, to the best they can, at least identify with a family or a community group. This is not how time works. And it's a core concept that you need to understand. I'm going to push it, and then I'm going to get to what we do with what we know when we understand how time works. This is how time works. See, we thought we were here, okay? And psychologists write about it to this very day. There's something in us that wants deeply to believe that we are doing it better than the people who came before us. But psychologists say that that is your brain protecting itself. Because there's something deeply painful about the realization that you might not be here, but you might be here. Or here. And your brain wants you to believe that you're here. Not just commercials want you to believe that you're here. Companies want you to believe that you're here. Politicians want you to believe that you're here. Because if you fully awaken to the fact that you're here, how you live when you're right here is very different than how you live when you think you're right there. The decisions that you make, if you fully accepted that you're in a place that looks more like this, the decisions you make, the life you live is very different than when you think you are some type of peak human. That we've reached maximum quality with how we do life. This number is 102. That's how many fully unarmed black men, women, and children were shot and killed by police last year. Unarmed. And I took from that number. The black man who was killed in Florida with a broomstick. He's not in here. There was another black man in Florida again who was killed with a spoon. He's not in there. Completely unarmed. Now, does anybody know who this is? The 25th president? Shout it out if you know who it is. Take a guess. No, not Taft. McKinley. Who said McKinley? Raise your hand. Where are you? Oh, there you are. How do you know that, man? Huh? Yeah, that's William McKinley. Do you know when he was president? 1860. No, close. Yeah, right around 1900. This photo was taken in 1902. You would have to go back to when he was president in 1902 to find the last year in this country where 102 or more African Americans were lynched. That last year, we had the same number of people, in essence, lynched by police. What is a lynching? It is an extrajudicial killing. It is a police officer serves as judge, jury, and executioner. No one faces a jury for years. No one gets legal counsel. They are denied their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what a lynching is. We would have to go back to when he was president. We think in our mind, because we don't always know our history, years of lynching were in the 40s, 60s, 1900s. We go back to the McKinley President, find a year where the same number of folk, unarmed folk who were killed by police last year. It's hard to know history when you're in it. It's hard to know an era, a time, a zone when you're in it because you just live your life. You have bills, you have responsibilities, you have moments, you're hungry, you're sleepy. We have self-esteem issues, we gotta get our clothes on. When we wake up, we don't think, where am I in the scheme of history? It's powerful that documentary, I would encourage all of you to go see a documentary about what happened in Tulsa. I flew when people call it Tulsa race riots. There's no race riot. It was a full-on massacre. You would have to go back. The deadliest hate crime against African Americans, hear my heart. I want you to know where we are right now. The deadliest hate crime against African Americans since Tulsa happened when Dylan Roof walked into a Charleston church. The deadliest hate crime against African Americans was not in the 50s or 60s. It was not during the Civil Rights Movement. You have to go back to Tulsa to find a moment in the past 85 years as lethal as what Dylan Roof did 2 years ago. You live in the time where people are being lynched like they were in 1902 and slaughtered like they were during Tulsa. You live in that time. And it's hard to know the time you're in. If this is true, how is this true? How many of you have a Netflix account? If you don't have a Netflix account, before you leave, maybe your neighbor will let you borrow the password. All right, you need a Netflix account. You have to watch 13th. You have to watch it. Tell people, like, listen, let's not talk about it until you see it, okay? I don't even want to talk about criminal justice if you haven't seen that. Really, Ava DuVernay, one, was nominated for an Academy Award, deserves to win it. Even Josh and I were talking about how it impacted Josh, it's like, what'd you say, man? Good to see you, man, good to see you. Yeah, it's like, 13th could have been called the new Jim Crow. And the primary scholar and voice throughout 13th, the documentary, is Dr. Michelle Alexander. And really what Ava did in the documentary was she basically made a movie of the book, The New Jim Crow. And I want to explain to you, I'll give you the short Shaun version of what that story tells. Is that for most of American history, see, these are facts, okay? These aren't my opinions. For most of American history, the prison population, this says 1925, but we could go back to the early foundings of this country. The prison population is steady, and then you get right about here, about 1972, where the former governor of California is now president. And in 13th, and in the new Jim Crow, but you have to see the 13th because they show you the videos and the interviews. Right about here, Richard Nixon and his chief strategist, I have to use that word because Donald Trump has a chief strategist now who was a lot like Richard Nixon's chief strategist then, a white supremacist. They asked themselves, this is fact, he admitted to this, that right about here, they asked themselves the question, how can we criminalize blackness without people knowing that's what we're aiming to do? Of course, it's 1972, so you cannot pass a law making it illegal to be black. So they did two things, and this is what 13th explains. They did two things. They began to decide what laws do we already have that we can enforce only in black communities. And then the next undertaking was, what new laws can we create that we will only enforce in black communities? And right here started a period of them creating not dozens or hundreds, but thousands of new laws, which then caused a historic explosion in America's prison population, which has affected most of us in this room. I have to correct people because people see this, or they watch 13th, and their first thought is to say, the criminal justice system is broken. And that's better. You're almost right. You are almost right. It's better than saying nothing. But it's not broken. This right here was designed to work this way. This is not, listen, I'll show you what's broken. Steady, steady. You see this line right here? Okay. This is broken. It barely goes above the line. It corrects itself. That's science. Science is a slight deviation from the mean. And it corrects itself. As you see, it then dips back below it. This cannot happen on accident. This is a system that it's not accidental, it's firing on all cylinders. This is an accident like you can accidentally build a house. You can accidentally build a highway. It takes plans, it takes people, it takes money and resources. This is not broken. Saying it's broken assumes that it was designed well. And it has now deviated from, no, this was built to function this way. Here's another way of looking at it. This is international rates of imprisonment. That right now, I say it's hard to know a moment in history when you're in it. That right now, not only do we have the highest rate of imprisonment, we have the highest number of people in prison. And there's a stat that people use that's powerful, but I need to clarify. You'll hear people say a lot that the United States has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prison population. I don't think that gives full power to where we are right now. In the United States right now, we have more people in prison than any country in the history of the world. Not the century, not the millennium. In the history of the world, no country has ever had more of its people in prison than we have right now. That's where we live. That we currently have a higher rate of people in prison than South Africa did at the height of apartheid. Now, if I lined 100 people up on this stage, progressives and liberals and conservatives, people from every South African apartheid unethical. 99 of those people, except for the Dylan Roofs of the world, 99 of the people say, yeah, South African apartheid was deeply unethical. But if I lined those same 100 people up, and I said, is our current system unethical? I've tried this. The answer is completely different. That even though qualitatively, some of what we are experiencing in this country is worse, that a higher rate of our people are in prison than South African apartheid. But if you lined 100 people up and said, is this unethical? Only about 35% of them would say yes. That's right, baby. That's right. Even the babies know, right? The Bible says, out of the mouth of babes, right? Many truths will come. This is not how humanity works. That we are not steadily progressing. That if this was true, if this was how humanity works, I'm going to show you a few videos, and I've come to know these people, and I want to press it, and I'm going to point us in the right direction, and we'll do a Q&A, and if we have time, we'll take selfies and hang out, okay? Have you seen this? I have to show this to you. Hold on. This is in McKinney, Texas. And it grieves my heart, but we've seen it, but I want to unpack what happens here for you. Because there are layers and layers of things going on here. I had never noticed until I started doing this demonstration and saw it on the big screen. I had never noticed before when I watched the video, these young brothers sitting on the grass with their hands behind their back. Because I had mainly seen what's about to happen to to this beautiful young girl right here who's only 14 years old. Okay, these are young babies. These are 8th and 9th graders. Some of them live, I don't know if they do it like this in Oakland, but in McKinney, Texas, suburb of Dallas, they have neighborhoods that have clubhouses and swimming pools, okay? And housing is a lot more affordable in McKinney, okay? And so in this neighborhood, many of the kids invited their friends to come over to the pool party. And I'm not even going to unpack the complicated nature of black folk and swimming, but most of the girls were not even swimming. Like you'll see, most of the girls were not wet. It was really just an experience to hang out, right? And so they're at the pool party, and I want to say this, and it's a little PG-13, but I just want to be clear. The kids were not smoking, they were not drinking, they were not touching each other inappropriately. They're sweet, good kids. They were hanging out. And they were allowed to be there. They were breaking no law, of course, but they were not even breaking neighborhood code. But a white family saw them and did not recognize them and called the police. The police show up, and right now this video is being filmed. There are 3 or 4 people I want to point out. This video is being filmed by a brave young white friend of most of the black kids who are here. His name is Brandon Brooks. You'll see his name pop up. Brandon does not live in the neighborhood. And he started realizing the police were just getting every one of his friends, telling them to lay on the ground. They're in a swimming pool. Put your hands behind your back. And Brandon, chunky white 14-year-old boy, starts looking around like, why is nobody saying anything to me? And he had the thought, I'm so glad he did, I'm going to film this. And the whole time he did interviews after, he was so perplexed that he said he felt like he had an invisible force field around himself. What we call that force field is white privilege. People act like we were victims. Brandon, a courageous young man, experienced it. And it disarmed him. He realized for the first time in his life, why would he know? How could he know? He came and had a moment of awakening where he realized, even though I don't belong here, they don't care. Also want to point out him, okay? He has deputized himself, okay? Brandon is so friends are being made to put their hands. That's the moment I want you to see. I want you to see what happened right there. Because it's, I don't know if the right word is emasculation. I don't quite have the right word for what happened. But I love these 2 brothers right here. Okay? They see him forcefully tossing and throwing a clearly unarmed, nonviolent young girl in a 2-piece bikini who they knew as their friend. They see her being brutalized, and you gotta realize this is unfolding in real time. They had the thought, which was the right thought, I'm gonna go get her. This is not right, I need to snatch her out of here. She's done nothing wrong, she's broken no laws. And he has the thought, I'm gonna shoot them. The way the remote works, I can't quite continue it from right here. So I have to force you to start that over again. This will be the last time I'll force you to watch it. It's painful to see. But I want you to see what happens. He begins targeting her, and there's something deeply perverted about it as well there. Watch him, as the brothers try to come out, watch, they're going to help her. He pulls his gun out, they run. That's all I can see.
Oh my God.
So, I have tried for months to find this man. Because, again, when I first watched it, and she was all I could think about because I have a 14-year-old daughter. And I just watched it, and when I watched it, I wrote stories about it for the Daily News. When I watched it, all I could think about was him and it gets worse. Like he begins to get on top, like mounting her. It's a deeply perverted thing going on, a very perverted exercise of power. There's a reason why he targeted her. I won't even unpack it, but it's him that bothers me. Many different times he begins putting his own weight on different kids here. In essence, he deputizes himself and deems himself an assistant to the officer. When this happened, there are 2 videos that this happened. At the time I was living in Atlanta, and Atlanta and Oakland are like the retirement communities for the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Panther Party. So Atlanta's got like a lot of the old heads from the SCLC and things. And I started talking to some of my elders in Atlanta, and they told me, they said, Shaun, all my life I had never seen anything like this. Like, it was one thing they saw people being asked to leave the pool, but to see these young girls targeted this way, it's a disturbing thing. The next video is from Columbia, South Carolina.
Hi.
All right, I gotta unpack this. It's Officer Ben Fields. I know, I'm a Christian man, so I hate to say I hate somebody, but I despise this man. Officer Ben Fields is a strength and condition coach of the high school football team there. He's the type of guy, and I'm not being sarcastic, there are videos of him on YouTube. He likes to post videos of himself on YouTube lifting weights in the mirror and stuff. That's the type of guy he is. You can see the videos are still on YouTube today. He set deadlifting records when he was an athlete there at school. I blame this entire incident on the teacher. The young girl in the classroom was a foster child, and most of the kids in the class, this was the beginning of last school year, did not even know her. And she had her cell phone out in class, and the teacher asked her to put it away. How many of you are teachers or are training to be teachers in the room? Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for being here. You know, the teacher thing, my first job out of college was in the high school, teacher. My wife has been a teacher our whole life. She put the phone away. He asked her to put the phone away, and she put it away. And then there was no conflict. He changes his mind and then says, no, bring me the phone. Well, she freezes up. And the internet's a great place now. People started lying and saying that she blew up, she went off, like black woman stereotypes. Okay? And they were literally concocted by white supremacists online, concocting black women stereotypes about how she acted. I spoke to kids in the classroom. She did nothing. She went almost catatonic. The teacher then calls the principal, who calls the police. He's an actual police officer with a gun on his side. When you see what is happening right here, Ben Fields has been in the classroom for about 5 seconds, okay? And I want us to watch what he does as he rips her out of this desk.
Oh my God.
And throws her 4 or 5 feet toward a tendon in the shoulder, scraped her up on the side, and then he arrests her. She gets arrested for not giving her teacher a telephone. They also arrest the young girl who filmed it. Arrested both of them. Ben Fields never got arrested. He assaulted her, a violation of her rights. I had a pioneer in the civil rights movement contact me and talk about how she helped integrate her school in Georgia, and how never in her life did she know of a case of police brutalizing kids in the school. That they always felt, okay, it's one thing out of the school, and in the school we might deal with harassment. But they had never seen anything like this in the school. It's in Oakland, Kentucky. I'm born and raised in Kentucky. It's at a Donald Trump rally. Let me show you. I have to show you. You see that red hat, right? What does it say on that hat? Make America great again. That man is Matthew Heimbach. Before this ever happened, Matthew Heimbach is leader of a registered hate group on the FBI watch list. He attended Donald Trump events all over the country, not just as a spectator, but as a recruiter for his organization, which he admits to. Donald Trump himself, this young lady contacted me the day this happened. She was not there as a protester. She was so smart. She's a junior at the University of Louisville. This is a march during the primary. She was so smart, and I see now even more so. She had the thought that Donald Trump was going to win the Republican primary. She told me this then, that she thought he could even win the election. She wanted to just see it for herself. And there's another man here that I want you to see, and we won't watch the whole video. 1 second. You see Matthew Harbaugh. You see the men shoving her into her. Are there any veterans in the room? Any veterans? I see you. So I wrote my article, and in my article I said what shocked and disgusted me was that a veteran was pushing her like this. And I literally had communications department from the Army contact me and say, Shaun, this man is not a veteran, he just dresses like one. That he loved, it's called cosplay. Right? That's what we call it, right? He loved the way, imagine, he's an elderly man at a Donald Trump rally. He loved the way people treated him when he dressed like a veteran. In part, when you see her video, he was the first man that began harassing her. And in her, she was doing Snapchat. She thinks maybe he's drunk, and maybe he was. Donald Trump himself sees it and then instructs, not security, but instructs the audience to get her out. And they begin shoving her like a pinball all through the crowd. And when you watch the entire video, she literally goes through hundreds of feet of men, shoving her until she gets all the way out of the door. Now, let's use our imagination for a moment. Let's imagine there's a crowd of black men. And Becky's at the event. And Becky, one, says the Barack Obama rally, okay? One, Barack Obama would never instruct people to do something like that. But if scores of black men began shoving Becky all through the crowd, Secret Service would intervene. They were there at this event. State and local police were there. Somebody would stop it. We estimated, and she's suing the city, we estimated at least 15 or 20 officers saw this go down. Had no thought to stop it. Why? Why not that? They didn't mind it. If you mind it, you stop it. Last video. Okay, he was a protester. He's flipping the bird. He's pissed. He's in North Carolina. He came there to show off. They escorted him out. And you will see here in the video, there are 3 officers behind him, and there are 4 or 5 officers right here. But another man on Trump's word, in front of the police, decides he has to do something about it. What? After he cuts around his orbital bone with an elbow. At first I thought he threw a punch, but he threw an elbow. Like something he could have thrown the elbow before in his life. Right? He threw the elbow, cut the man right on his orbital bone. The man collapses. They then arrest the black man and allow the white man to go back to his seat. What's your name right here, man? What's your name, brother? Roy. If you were at this event, Roy, and there were 3 police behind, and say it was the man in the hat being escorted out, and for some reason, you just thought, now is my time to shine. I've been wanting to throw an elbow like this for a long time. I'm about to do it. And you go up and you throw that elbow on that man's face. What do you think would happen to you, Roy? Who would have beat you? The crowd would have beat you down, right? Or the police. So watch. I want you to see it, and then I want you to see what happens here. Boy, if somehow or another you had a Harry Potter cloak of invisibility that allowed you to go back to your seat like he did, I bet you would not do this interview afterwards, okay? On Inside Edition. Listen.
I liked it. Yeah? What'd you like about it?
Knocking the hell out of that big mouth. We don't know who he is, but we know he's not acting like an American.
So you deserved it?
Every bit of it.
What was that?
Listen.
Yes, he deserved it. The next time we see him, we might have to kill him.
The man is on Inside Roy. If you happen to get away with throwing that ball, would you get on TV and claim the elbow and take it a step further and say, next time I see the man, I'm gonna kill him? I've asked this question, shown this video to probably 100 audiences. There's not a black man. See, I said it when I first started showing this video. I said there's not a black man in America that would throw that elbow. And then I had a couple brothers come up to me and be like, no, I would throw the elbow. Like, there are a few brothers in Oakland who would throw the elbow, right? Yeah. But there's not a black man in America who would throw that elbow under the assumption that they're going to have a seat afterwards. I didn't show you this video to show you something you've seen before, but to unpack, like, it took 70 years to make this man. Right? He didn't go to school to learn that in front of at least 7 police officers, he had, I don't even understand it. He had the awareness that I can probably throw this elbow, have my seat, and then brag about it and make a death threat afterwards. When we talk about white privilege, this is what we're talking about. It's not simple, it's deep, it's decades, centuries in the making. It's what Kat said. This is not new. This is old. It's old, but here's what. We are in a dip in the quality of our humanity. This slide and the next slide is last, and we'll take some questions. That Harriet Tubman, we have to correct our history, because when you have Donald Trump as president, he's liable to talk about Frederick Douglass like he lives down the street. You see that foolishness? Oh, I see a moment to have a Donald Trump riff, okay? He literally, you have to read the transcript of his comments on Frederick Douglass, where he talked about the active, current contributions of the man. It was if Saturday Night Live created that skit, it would seem outrageous that he would speak of Frederick Douglass in present tense. I thought it could get, I'm talking about being in the dip, right? I thought it could get no worse, and then 6 courts ruled against Donald Trump's immigration ban, and then, hold on. Then a 7th court, a panel of 3 judges, Democrat and Republican, appointed by Democratic and Republican presidents, ruled just this past week 3-0 against the immigration ban. Now you can clap your hands. Wrote a tweet. Okay, 7 courts are now ruled against you. A federal panel of 3, a bipartisan panel of 3 federal judges just said this is unconstitutional. And Donald Trump tweeted, "See you in court." It's like, no, you just lost in court. It's like, you don't lose 7 times in court, then tell judges, "See you in," there's only